Hello, chess friends. This is International Master Valeri Lilov, and welcome to today's lecture on YouTube. So today we're going to be talking about one of my most favorite topics, and this is the topic of planning. Now, as probably most of you already know, planning is fairly complicated, and one of the reasons is because when it comes down to planning, first thing is it's different. If anybody tells you it's easy to do it, don't believe him, because it is really about adapting yourself to the given situation and then learning to evaluate the most important aspects of the position so you know how to do it. Now, this is extremely difficult to do, but don't get discouraged. There are methods, there are patterns that I like to share with you, and hopefully this will make it a little easier for you to make this more successful. So first of all, I'd like to start with a game played by one of the greatest. Now, a lot of people wonder, how did Bobby Fischer plan on his games? I mean, it looked like he was just, the train just going over his opponents. Just it was incredible. So you don't really see much of a planning in his games. You just see him destroying people. And that was true to an extent. When you really get to look deeper in some of Fischer's games, you see a very precise and clear guidelines of a plan. It's just that most people never notice them because they seem hidden. And so what I want to do is I would like to show you a couple of really brilliant games of Fischer so you could see how he was able to do it extremely successfully in his game. So we're going to start with the game play between Bobby Fischer and Oscar Panno in Buenos Aires. I think it was year 1970. Yes. So basically, Bobby was white. And the game started off with e4. Okay, so e4, black played c5, knight of 3, e6, d3. This looks like a really passive move at first. When you really get to see it, it's just like, why would anyone do a move like that? The reason is simply because, first and foremost, we need to get structure. Now, the concept of structure is very simple. You just need a formation that's going to sustain any attack or a plan that you begin. But something that Fischer used to do extremely well was to set out a formation that is easy to work, to build on, to work through. That is something you can do by trying to keep it simple. Now take a look at what White does. He not only sets up for a very easy pawn formation, but he is actually ready to deliver more with the next moves to follow. There is knight c6 and g3, g6 and bishop g2. I've always been very optimistic when it comes down to setting up the right pieces, because it actually gives you what you need most, and this is necessary activity, the strength, and that's beautiful. After the move of bishop to the g2, we can quite quickly realize what this is going to do. It's going to help us to deliver short castles, and then we can think about the way to play queen e2, whatever. It's actually very easy to do, very simple, very easy to follow. So what black played was this here, and next move, knight e7, rook e1. Now, when you look at those moves, you're probably going to be like, okay, I don't get it. I don't understand why we'd necessarily play like that. Is there purpose within those moves? The answer to that question is not particularly. Okay, and this is a very interesting thing to point out. There is no special reason as to why White does this type of move or another. The reason why he plays what he's playing is just to set up. Now, I want you to understand that what White wants is simply to set up, not to attack, not to break through. He just wants to set up. The setup is a beautiful thing. And if you do it right, you could be very successful, but you have to take the time. Black plays d6 and then White plays c3. Now, What you need to know about planning in the opening, or what I often call the setup, is that you need to think in perspective. The simplest idea about thinking in perspective is that you just need to be thinking in terms of, where do I want to have my pieces go in the next few moves? It is a very easy idea. But the truth is, most people don't do it. You'll be surprised when I say most people don't do it. Most people really do not do it. So what you actually wish to do is to always think in respect to, okay, where do I want to have my pieces go to and the next few moves. Like, not just say, oh, I'm gonna go here and we'll see. No, I'm gonna go here and let's see what I like to follow it. Then you can say, I'd like to go here, and I like to go here, and I like to do that, and I like to do this. Oftentimes that will change, but don't let that bother you. It doesn't matter if it will change or not. As long as you stick to the plan of making the development grow, you're fine. So, for instance, in this case, White's last few moves were just, okay, they were obviously purposeful, but they support an overall development. He was thinking maybe get the dark square bishop out or the knight and maybe bring it to f1. There's a great plan in this King's Indian to have a structure where White is actually going to set up for h4 and knight h2. And so, should Black choose to castle, White will have plenty of attacks going against the king. So, Black castles anyway, and then White played d4. Let's talk about something else. I call that the sprinkles, to a really successful plan. Like, you got to sprinkle your position. You can't just say, all right, I'm going to develop like this and this and this, and it looks fine. It may look fine, but that doesn't mean that it's going to give you any advantage. Sprinkling is what I would call trying to get all these nice little features that will later help you to take an advantage. So you could just say, you could say a little more than just, oh, I'm gonna feel good because I have my pieces developed. But you could say, all right, I've got better position because I have more space around the middle, because I've got that type of thing that is happening here, and it's more important. See, this is a huge idea. Very valuable thing to do is to think in perspective of, what do you get? Not just what, like, oh, I have a nice development, that's good. That's not enough. Think in terms of what you're really going to get. Like now, White's fighting for the center. So it's not only about developing and developing nicely. While this is fine, it's a lot more about getting those qualities which will serve you quite powerfully as the game progresses. So this is good. Let's take a look and see what happened in this case. So after d4, Black plays c6 to the d, and after that, okay, there was the move of c6d, d5, e5. Now White is transforming this into something much more. He gets the space and the center control, and then that will kill Black's bishop, as we could see. So, like, this is great, and that's an awesome idea. So Black is actually having a problem with that bishop. He can't quite easily develop any of his other pieces, and we're just making it good and nice as always. Let's go. This is it. So in that respect, after the move of e5 is played, Black played bishop c7, knight c3. I think Fischer was particularly strong at setting up an advantageous, or like what we could call it, a more effective pawn structure. Because the most effective pawn structure, the most active pawn structure, you can call it any way you want, is what's giving you the backbone, the proper backbone of the position. We can have bishop g5, we can have queen d2, and then you can have rook to the d1. This is a really good position, and it's easy. That's the good thing, actually. See, that's the difference between having a solid, like formation, a good structure that can give you wide variety of possibilities, as opposed to having a house of straws, which I would call many players actually get in themselves into in the opening. They have that position, but it feels like almost at any point, and one mistake and it will fall. Is it possible to play openings like that? Sometimes, but I wouldn't recommend it because it's very difficult and because it's unnatural. See, this is what we need: an easy development, a good way to set the pieces, and the build-up, which a lot of people would call boring, is what really provides a lot more of what happens next. Now, let's talk about the last move of b3. Now, why did Fischer do it? What most players don't realize about planning is that planning is about not about actually developing or attacking, but it's about three particular stages. And when executed properly, they form a successful plan. The three stages basically are development, like usually in the opening when we set the pieces out. Then we get improvement, like when we add these small things, like restrict the opponent, get more pieces towards that area, connect them, get more space, stuff like that, positional things, and attacking. See, unless the opponent makes a blunder, the attacking comes last. This is very important. So you develop, then you improve, and then you attack. When you think in these three lines, it will help you to figure out the most optimal moves to get ahead in your game, as opposed to actually just trying to make things work like that and not actually having them working out. So Fischer knew this opening is developed. I mean, the opening is finished. The opening development's complete. So it's time for us to improve slowly and yet consistently. Now the b3 takes out the c4 square, so black can't quite advance. b4, knight e2, bishop b5, queen b2. And then truth is we get some resources, like for example there could be bishop h6 or bishop g5, g4, knight g3. I mean, you name it, it's all there. But it's a wonderful thing. And then the moment this was actually played, everything just looks great. Black continues with the move of the knight c6 and now g4. And what is this all about? Well, as you could see, it's all about one thing: the attack. See, why the improvement does not take too many moves, but then it helps you to naturally progress. We got g4 plus knight g3, we get bishop h6, and now is where the attack really starts. That's how we do it. Okay, so far this was just a setup, so I haven't started with the questions yet. Don't worry, I've got questions for you. So black plays a5, and I'd like to know, what do you think white should go with? He's got a few different moves. He's got knight g3, which he played g4 for. Well, he did it to cover the f5, but knight g3. We got h4. We got bishop h6. We got bishop g5. What would you guys do? Take a second and think about this. Now, remember that you want to be thinking about the kinds of moves that are safe, but at the same time, they help you to advance your plan gradually. So don't want to hurry, and yet you want to advance it forward. Hurrying comes only when the opponent has tactics. Now, bishop h6, great idea. But what about black? And so if we play this type of move, well, what do you do? Well, I guess you'd probably take here. We can take there, and yeah, why not? But Fischer didn't want to hurry. He played knight g3, and this is a really important idea. He doesn't have anything. Why rush? Let's take this one step at a time. With the move of knight g3, white's keeping the opportunity to exchange the bishop or not trade it, depending on how the game progresses. But that flexibility is key, because when we get a little more preparation, we'll better decide whether h4, bishop g5, or bishop h6 is relevant. All these moves are more or less a bit committal. But knight g3 is not. It's a natural move. It's a flexible move, and we don't have to hurry because the opponent doesn't have that many tactics to follow. This is a great candidate. Now black plays queen b6 and white does h4. Again, a less committal move for now. Knight b8, and of course bishop comes to h6. Knight d7. And so we have another important position. Okay, so these moves were clear. We started building on one area of the board where we feel like we have an advantage. So what do we do next? Now, while you're taking the time to think of this position, I do want to tell you about a great promotion that iChess are actually running just for the night, for the next few hours, actually. And this is 67% off my middle game mastery course that covers everything from evaluation to planning, attacking, defending, everything you need to know about strategy in order to get your chess to the next level. It's only available for a few hours on the link below this video or the one on the chat that I posted. So make sure to check this out. 67% for about a 20-hour course that is offered for something like 30 bucks. So it's really, really brilliant offer for all you guys. And I hope that this really helps you to get your chess on the next level. Now, getting back to the position, I don't see any suggestions as to what white should do. So please let me know. What is white's best idea to proceed? I'd like to hear that because it's a very important position. White's got the bishop, he's got the queen, he has h5. Is it good? Well, it is. And white did not play it. See, make the less committal move. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Now, not all of you, but some of you are thinking, come on, Valeri, this is just all that kind of, boring positional, like nonsense that I see in all these boring top grandmaster games. I don't want to play like that. I don't want to be a chicken. I want to go after it. If I lose with fire. And there's this great feeling of optimism. If I can lose 5 games and then win 1, and that'd be great. Yeah, that is a good logic. Trouble is, it's not what good players do. And the reason is because this is basically a gamble. When you attack with no preparation, with no proper positional background, you literally gamble. Basically what you say is, I'm going to throw here my pieces. I'm going to start the attack. If you defend right, I lose. That's fine. But if you mess up, it will make me feel really good if I checkmate you. And I'm not against gambling. I just think that good players do not rely on gambling. And chess is not supposed to be about gambling. Chess is about strategy. And that's what planning is all about. So the gamble chess is really, really not what we're discussing today. This is why I'm talking about positional background, because even players like Fischer, and I'm going to later show you games like Tal's games, known as one of the best tacticians, in almost every tactic, just before the tactical position comes, you see a lot of backup, positional background that's added so that this can make the tactical combination to work. It's not going to work if we don't have that. Okay, so this is really key. Not hurrying is one of the major rules. Being more patient is one of the most important qualities you can develop as a chess player. So now basically black exchanged, he trick again, and then he plays rook c8. So what would you guys think? Should white trade the rooks? Should he not trade the rooks? Should he, well, I don't know. I mean, this is up to you to find, because this is a great position to discuss. There's a great quality here. But despite that, we need to find out exactly what to do. Anyone? Should we trade to win a tempo, or maybe not? It's a good question. I mean, it really is. So what do we do? I'm a little more quiet now, so I can give you a moment. Knight g5 we can't do because of rook takes c1. He'll win the rook, remember. And g5 he kills the rook. I mean, you can exchange the rook if you want to play. Trade. Absolutely. I would be against trading if there was some purpose for this rook to go back to e1, d1, or whatever. But now there is no better future. So we really don't want to let the opponent rook come out. Take, h5. Not knight g5, but h5. And knight g5 would have actually allowed a weakness on the d4. And again, white wanted to go without that. The minimum risk. See, that's what mastery is all about. If you look at the games of, okay, let's call Carlsen. A lot of people think that Carlsen's game is boring. I think he's a brilliant player in terms of technique and defense. But most importantly, the reason why he's winning so many games and he's so good is because truth is he always maintains a more solid position than his opponent for a longer amount of time. That's his secret. Is it easy to do? You bet no. But essentially, that's what he's able to do so well. And that's why he's so successful. So ultimately, that's what you need to do too. Just make sure that you could actually follow that. Maintain longer position, more solid position for a longer amount of time. Now we get the pressure against the g6, and everything is working. Now, actually, after that, we get the knight g5. Possibly we can get the h7, and it's working out perfect. Step by step, no trouble. Everything is easy when you make it easier. That's what we need to do, little by little, and it works. All right, see? No complications. Even if there's the smallest chance that, hey, I'm going to let my opponent have that weakness, but it's okay. Maybe it's not going to matter. Don't. I honestly mean don't. Because if you do, things are going to go badly. So the truth is that you would always want to be very very careful, very precise, and when it comes to such type of moves. So now white plays h5, and see that gradual progression of white's plan. Knight g5. Now it's played. How the hell do we continue the attack here? Does anybody have a suggestion? I like boring chess. It's not boring. Okay, it's like remember this. Chess is strategy. It is always strategy. It's supposed to be a strategy, and it's always strategy because that's what the nature of the game presents. The problem is that most chess players, especially those who work on tactics a lot, they get this fake impression that it's all about those beautiful sacrifices, and all they have to do is to find them. It doesn't work like that. This is fantasy. It's not bad to have fantasies, but it's hard to make it in a game because you got to have all this setup and the right circumstances, all the right circumstances before the final brilliant sacrifice happens, and usually it doesn't. So h takes g and bishop e4, very important. That bishop has to get in. So white actually did not play h takes g. He did not want to let black take back with the pawn and get the queen involved. So the bishop jumps in right away. Black couldn't take it because in case of the take, there would have been knight takes c4, knight f6, and knight takes f7, or knight takes h7, inevitable to stop. And when black didn't, there's knight takes h7 right now, practically destroying his whole position. Takes, h takes g. Now black takes back, then we take down the bishop, and after knight g5, white's knight jumps in. Check here, takes, check. Queen and the knight are incredibly dangerous when they're attacking, and they do that right now. Oh, yes, they do. Queen g8's coming with a checkmate. Brilliant, simple, and effective. You see? Now, if you go in a tactical book, you're just going to have that position. You can say, oh, come on, this is awesome. I like to have bishop e4 in my own games. But that doesn't happen until that last moment of the game. So pretty much what you're seeing is the ending. It's not real. I mean, it's good to work on these combinations because it makes you sharp, so you could see similar, even simpler combinations. It keeps you, like open to such possibilities. But it's not the real thing. You don't get to have those type of moves in most times without preparation. So I really think that this game is a very clear example of the three key stages of any plan: the opening development, the early middle game preparation and improvement, and the late middle game attack, or setting up a plan. Essentially, the plan was to attack on the king side, to advance there, and White did it perfectly. He concentrated a huge amount of his power on that side of the board, and then he used the pawns and other pieces to break through the defense. It was just it's a book example. So this was a nice way of seeing how the plans or the concepts are going to work through. Now, what I like to do is show you something interesting. Let me bring up an example of Tal's games. Now, Tal's games are pretty interesting because Mihail Tal, well, I mean, what can I say that's not being said? He was one of the most imaginative players ever lived, and I don't believe that there's been anyone like him. Now, of course, in many of his games, there are these immediate, brilliant tactics starting from the opening, but those were very rare comparatively. In most of Tal's games, what we see is a lot of setup, and I mean a lot. Now, I'm not going to show you a slow game. In fact, I'm going to show you a rather fast game, but I want you to see what the setup in that game was. So give me 1 second. I'll get it there, and we're going to see an infamous game of Tal playing Larsen. That game was played in the semifinal candidates match in 1965. And it's brilliant. By the way, if any of you wants me to send him those games with the analysis that I've made right now and all these different annotations, please do that through my email. You can actually send me an email request to valeri.lilov@gmail.com, or just directly through my website, which is tigerlilov.com. I'd be glad to send you all the examples from today's lecture, so you can check them up and probably write some notes to them as well. And again, don't forget that many of those are included within the brilliant 20-hour video course on middle game strategy and planning that is being offered for the incredible 67% discount from the link below this video. So you can check this out as well. It's only available for a few hours. Now, one of you asked, what if black played f6 here? Don't think that would have worked, really. You would have just captured h7 here and then edicts f6. There is also bishop. Oh, okay, so queen f8 is there. So if he plays like this, we could even do, hell, we can even do g5. G6 is there, knight h5. Is this knight or that bishop, perhaps, are they going to really stop what's coming against black's position? I don't think so. Anyway, it was a beautiful game, and I do love it. So let's take a look at the next one. This was a game played by Tal himself. So Tal was white. This was a match game between Tal and Larsen. And let's see what happened. E4, knight f3, d4, the open Sicilian, knight c3, bishop e3, and f4. One of the first things that I love a lot about openings is the active opening or the active development. The reason is because when you get active development or active opening, it almost instantly helps you to see the strength, the power with all of this. And now we understand what it's all about. We get the really great pawn on the f4 together with the pawn on e4. And next move, we can think about even queen f3. Any of these moves are going to be played out quickly. So, looks great. Then black played bishop e7, queen f3. It's a strong setup. I always say setup is important. And then we can actually think about long side castles. We could do possibly some candidates like, for instance, g4, bishop d3. Again, setup is required. If you don't have the setup, you're not going to have the tactics. And that doesn't work if you don't have the tactics. So, queen f3, castles, long side castles. So now we have an attacking setup. This is good. After the move of queen f3, alongside castles, queen c7 was played out, and then basically black played. Okay, so now white plays the move of knight up there. So perfect candidate in this type of position. And then we have the shot instantly going against the opponent's d6 pawn. It's interesting. This doesn't seem like a developing move. This seems like a direct attack. But it's only a one move attack, and it has a strategic point. All you would want to do is to think about, just shooting him down so that he's got to go back. He has to be more backward in this case. So now with the d6 under pressure, essentially black played with the move of queen to the b8. And when the queen came right down in this position, white plays g4, really strong. Then that pawn, in fact, is going to go to the g5 square, and then we can follow up with the move of h4 plus h5. Strong, active, and quite good, if I have to be honest. Take a look at this. What we have here is a very aggressive approach, but it is quite well prepared, and it is based on one thing. The reason why white becomes so successful with his development, as opposed to black, who does not, obviously, is because white has a very active position. His advantage in space gives him great possibilities that black could only dream about. In fact, he's not going to have them. I find this really beautiful. When you get so much space and possibilities, it's easy to make any kind of attacks, even to rush a little bit without the risk that you could lose something. It's a very interesting idea. So we could see that why white is doing it right now. He doesn't worry, doesn't have to worry. And essentially after the move g4, a6, the knight comes back, black exchanges, and white takes back again. Now, just compare the position. Forget about calculation. I'm always against the calculation. Forget about calculation for a second. Just compare the different possibilities of white versus black. All about space, control, like pressure, all these things. And what do you think? It has everything. Literally everything's possible because of the wonderful bishop, the pawn that's out there, and everything else that's going to come in. So step by step, white's game is just getting better and more powerful as the position progresses. Black played b5 and g5. Most important move here was bishop d3. See, everything's situated in the way so that white can make the attack work. Whether it's going to be with a move like f5 to follow, or whether it's just going to be with something else, it actually depends on the position on the next moves. But white feels like he's got all the setup and the preparation to do it. So he says, let's go. Let's do it. g4 plus g5, and everything's in place. I love approaching the position of this from this angle because it's exactly what we need. You don't want big tactics. You want big setup. And that basically includes two things: more pieces on advanced squares and more pieces towards or in the center. Look at how good this seems. White is both active and well placed. Black played b4 and now followed the amazing knight d5. If I got to tell you, this to me is just the pivotal point where white proves that everything that he's been building so far could transform into a magnificent sacrifice. Now you'd say, okay, but hang on, that's because Tal is playing. It would give me the shivers to even think about a move like this. Yeah, pretty much. It's a pretty big move. It will give you the shivers because when you're really looking at it, you would say to yourself, I don't know if I want to. It's too much of a quick move, and it looks like we don't get that many tactics. But think about something else. Every tactical sequence, with exception of very few actually, always ends up incredibly successful for the player who has better development or faster development in one way or another. Now, if you actually think about this position from White's perspective, something very interesting that you'll see is that there is almost little to nothing that a black could do. There is, backside pieces. There is terrible development, yeah, and probably some other similar moves, some little similar things. But it's actually a moment after White plays with knight to the d5, we understand that as soon as the tactical sequence takes place, there is going to be nothing but terror that will practically tear Black's position apart, because his pieces are totally undeveloped and totally no condition to fight back. Black takes, White takes back. Now this is quite interesting. Grandmaster Yakov Damsky mentioned that this piece sacrifice is positional, not a tactical, because it's made to open up and give every single one of the white pieces brilliant lines for the attack. So Black plays f5. Now I want you to think carefully about this position and what White must do. And so what should White try to follow it in this position? What is the better way to go? Take a second and think about it. It's a good position, good control, but what should White do? Anyone? Now, one of you asked, what if Black played e5 instead of g5? What if White played e5 and g5? Yeah, okay. I don't think that e5 would have worked out that well, because Black would have just played bishop b7, challenging both the queen and this. So it's not going to be that great. It's not going to be that worth it. So no. Just played it this way. Now the sack of the knight, and Black plays f5. Queen e3, not so great. I think Black will just get that rook out, maybe the bishop back to protect. I think it's okay to do, but I want you to think carefully. Is this the best move for White? Again, I'm not saying maybe it's Queen e3, maybe it's not. Just want you to think. So think. We can have g takes f to open files. That's possible too, so we can get the g file available. That's actually a pretty good idea. What White played was rook de1. Brilliant move. You know, out of all the years of playing that I've had, and actually teaching just as well, what you need to understand is that I found one concept that is more important than anything else. And the most important concept, actually, is that you need to think about what is your worst place piece. Now, I got to tell you, I haven't seen many players do that. Haven't seen many players do that. When you're in a winning or advantageous position, you rarely get to ask yourself the question, where am I weak? How often do you do that? Never. Because we think about where we're better, what we have, what we want to get. It's much easier to think like that. And it sounds much better. The truth is, however, that if you only think about it in such a way, it's only going to give you the current pieces, the current features, and sometimes they're not enough. For this reason, the big idea of great players is that they think about how to introduce what's not there, what is actually missing in this position. And what is missing is a pretty big thing. We need that rook introduced. We get it, and then the moment we get that rook into the play, it is fantastic. We could have the chance to attack. We could have the resources to pressure. We could do anything in any way we want to do it. It is just good. Nothing else. And it works. It does work quite well. Rule number one, think of a way or a possibility to get more pieces into your battle, into the battle, more forces into the play. That will help. So now what we get in is a great way to advance and attack him. And I don't think that he gets that many. He gets that many things to do. Let me see. In this case, black basically played this, and then of course we get that variation, which is great. So it's now the pawn is actually coming over the h5. How do we determine the speed? That's another big question that I've often been asked. How do you know if whatever you do is not going to be slow, or maybe it's just fast enough? Now, many people will tell you it's about calculation, it's about seeing the position a bit deeper, it's about having more experience. That's bullshit, honestly. It's not about that. I mean, all these things could matter and have significance, but in my opinion, it's just personally my opinion, speed in chess depends on only one thing: the opponent's strong intentions. That means what is the thing that the opponent can do to damage my position? Maybe it's a counterattack, or maybe it's an escape route, or maybe it's just a threat or counterplay that he's intending. If your opponent has that, depending on what level of counterplay he's got, you will have to decide how much you should hurry. But if he doesn't have that, which is the situation right now, you do not have to hurry. So literally, that's all you want to think about. The speed in chess, as a rule, depends all on what the opponent can do. And because now he can't do anything, we know that there's no reason to hurry. Bishop b7, bishop takes f5. Beautiful, beautiful move. I love that. Now we get the idea that if black captures it, he is going to have an extra problem due to rook takes to the e7. And, well, that's basically all we need. Truth is, it's going to be plenty of big problems in the position. Wonderful idea, and just what we need in this moment. What about black? I mean, does he have a chance to do some things differently? Rook takes f, rook takes d7, knight e5. I mean, he's trying. It's not like he's not trying. He's trying. But it doesn't matter. Remember what I said in the beginning? It's all about that collision between you and your pieces as opposed to your opponent. Truth is, doesn't matter. Black is in a bad position, and all these tactical sequences are going to work out greatly for us. We have queen e4 attacking the f5, e5, b7. Black does queen f8, f takes to the e5. Rook f4, queen e3, rook f3, queen e2. Very smart maneuver of the white queen, just going back and back and back to the point where black just can't capture it, and since we're going to take there. Queen takes d7, queen takes f3. See? It's positional pressure that makes it possible for white to constantly advance his play. As a rule, the most powerful type of attack is the pressure. That means not when you're making threats, but when you're tying your opponent down to defend on the backside. That's what we need. Now, a couple questions that I wanted to actually answer. So let's see. But say that black plays h5 and g6, then black plays with h6. The file closes. Well, I don't think that it would happen. As you can see, it wasn't about h5 at all. It was about all the other things that were hanging. So it's not just one thing. So what if black played bishop knight c5 as opposed to bishop b7? Wouldn't that be better? It could, but depends on who is it better for. I think white can just take and then play d6. So then we have the a8 rook that's hanging. Then we get the bishop c4 that's hanging. I think that should work. I mean, looks like it. Queen h5, bishop c4, rook d takes d7. There's many problems. I mean, that could be a threat. We could just play bishop c4 first if you want to. It's also possible. Yeah. Now, one of you asked, okay, knight e5, why not rook e7 in this case? Rook f7 wouldn't have made any difference. White would have just played out. Okay, but what if he just plays rook takes f7? Now the king is extremely exposed in this position, and then we can even do, um, let's say g6 or queen e4. G6 looks like a really strong idea at this point. H takes G F5 to open up more files. I mean, I'm not pro black here. I can only think about that many tactics that will follow after the check and another check here. The knight's going to fall. The rook's going to get involved. F1 or G1. It's a disaster actually. So this is not a good thing. How is A8 hanging? Well, it's not hanging, but it would have tied down the black queen to defend it. So that wouldn't have worked. I mean, I think that what black really wanted was a more active position, and that's why he played knight e5. But then there's queen e4 and f takes 3. Here, takes. Now you'd say that maybe black gave back the piece, but he'd returned his safe position. Think again. Now white is definitely not a piece down, and maybe his pressure is a little smaller, but the advantage is huge. He's 2 pawns up, and clearly it's winning. And that is the final breaking point inside black's position, because the black king is in trouble. He cannot take the d5 due to rook e8. He plays rook f8, and then white can just combine. Now look at the center. Center is usually the key area that determines a lot of your tactics. Now white has awesome possibilities in the center. b3, just take. Rook f1, here, black gives 1 check, and now you can see that he can't even take the pawn due to the simple rook e8 and queen e6 that will do a checkmate. So he came back with the queen and now followed that last move. This is how tactics are supposed to work. Out of a winning position with everything in place, we make the tactic. See, tactics come last. I know you want it differently, but it doesn't come differently. In this case, it works out beautifully because of the great setup for each of white's pieces, and the fact that as soon as he delivers that type of move, we realize black just can't go anywhere. He has no chance. If he captures it, we got rook e8, queen e6, queen f7, which helps white's queen and the rook to deliver what is killer against black's position, the tactic on the back rank. Wow. I mean, to me, this is a really beautiful example of a tactical idea played out of a very strong setup in positional development. This is why I often say to my students, when you're playing a game, try to make sure that the position sort of develops itself. And then I often get that answer like, oh, Valeri, what do you mean develops itself? Well, imagine that you get the right setup there, to get the right space, the right coordination. It's so easy to maneuver your piece and figure out where to attack or just to advance somewhere. And also, it's your structure that does the heavy lifting for you. If you do not have the structure, you try to figure things out and they usually don't work because you don't have the pieces, you don't have the space, you don't have the control. So you have to do the heavy lifting. So let that to your position, let that to your pieces, to the space you've got. See, this is exactly what happened in here. White wasn't in need to figure out any tactics. He just needed to know that he was keeping black under pressure and there was no immediate way for black to get out. Then, of course, the idea with the pressure on the king's side and the e5, that was it. No calculation was needed to make a sacrifice of a knight. Yes, you could argue that that was Tal, and, a mortal like us would be afraid to do a sacrifice like this. But again, if you really think about it, it was a very justified and easy to take on sacrifice when you see how black has no chance of getting out and you realize all the different pressure coming against it. The king side is a weakness, f5, e7, and all along. So let the structure do the heavy lifting for you. Do not rely on planning based on calculations, smart maneuvers, or original, thinking. It doesn't work. Get the space, get the coordination, get the center, develop fast. And also what's going to happen is that when you do it like this, yes, it will take some time, but you give your opponent the ability to mess up. And that's the other thing that I love about doing this. With masters, that works less, although it still works. But especially with intermediate and beginner players, they don't know that stuff. So what they will do is they'll try to start things up on their own, behind, unprepared. They will try to do something, and it usually create a lot of weaknesses. So you will have all those pieces and the structure to actually exploit these mistakes or those holes in the opponent's position. So basically, you get all those things. You get the formation that allows you to attack. You get the speed because you'll be better and faster than your opponent, and you would have given him the chance to create a weakness. So basically, he does your job. He does your work. Instead of you trying to make a weakness, he would do it on his own. The time that he's given, he wouldn't know what to do, so he'll make the mistakes. He'll mess up his structure, and then you use your structure to exploit it. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that, but no, most people do the hard work. They say, all right, I'm going to try from the beginning. I'm going to push really hard, and I'm going to play really great game. And it doesn't work. Don't do it with the pushing. Do it with the development. Do it the easy way, the way Carlsen does it. Okay, I want you to play like him. Well, you know, maybe a little bit more aggressively, although I wouldn't mind if you actually play at that level. So let's take a look. I want to give you a couple of training positions right now that I prepared just for today to illustrate a few of these things that I was telling about. So one of them is particularly instructive, and I think you would love to do a little bit of thinking about it. So give me a second. All right, here we go. Let me talk about, and this is one of my favorite games. It was played by Grandmaster Baburi. Was actually playing this with the black pieces. So let's talk about it. This is from Black's perspective. It's a very famous game. Now, by the way, it's one of my favorite examples on positional chess and why it works. So I'm going to give you a second to think about a plan. Now, I would like you to take this opportunity to think fast. Do not think slow. A common misconception in chess is that the more you think, the more you'll find. Well, yeah, you need to think, of course. But keep in mind, a lot of the great ideas can be made by just intuitively looking at the board, not through calculation, but by evaluating the nuances, like what you want, what are the weaknesses, what is my goal in this position. Questions like this, ask them, and then let me know what you think. Now, while you do that, I'd like to once again tell you about the like perfect promotion that iChess is hosting for the next few hours. They're basically promoting the mastery planning course on middle game that I have actually prepared. And it's like about 20 hours of training on planning, attacking, defending, evaluating, you name it, everything that's important to get your strategy in middle game to the next level. So you can check it for the next few hours from the link below the video or the link I just posted on the chat. And this is like some of the best lectures that I have prepared, and I think you'll have some fun with those. So let's talk about this situation. It's Black to move, and I think it's great. What should Black do now? Take a second and give me your thoughts. You know, it's a pretty equal position. And you're probably thinking, why would Valeri choose a position like that? I mean, I want to have knight d5 position, like Tal. Well, yeah, but we don't have it. We just have this boring stuff. So, I guess I disappointed you. Target the e3? No, he is already defending it. So we can't do that. We need to improve the rook on a8. Good point. But if we just bring it out on c8 or even double the rooks, that simply wouldn't make much difference. I think white would play e4, get his own bishop out, or like e4, bishop e3 even, and that's fine. We can bring the rook, but nothing special is going to come out of it. Can we do queen a5? Yes, possible. Not much is going to come from this, as well as b6. But then I got another idea. Thank you. Thank you for finding this, John. This is a good move. Very good. Knight d7. We get knight e5 coming along. We get the attack. We get the d3. Starting with the worst placed piece. Now, what is the worst piece? The piece that's idle, that doesn't do anything. Rook on a8 is also idle, but could go out any second. The knight, not so much. The knight will have no future if it remains there. And so now suddenly we get the threat. But what the hell? I mean, what if you just plays the move of e4, f4? Isn't that easy? Well, it is. But then we go back to the f6, and then we're going to have the e4 square. So it's actually interesting. We go back to the initial position, but then we can take on a beautiful spot, blockading the white pawn, getting the file, and keeping him back. So now white played e4, which kind of let black to place his knight on the e5 quickly. Queen c2 and c4. And here we go. We have a big advantage for black in just 2 moves. Could positional chess do it? Yes. And I'm not telling you because I favor positional play more than tactical. I'm telling you this because there is no positional and tactical. This is not a book where we have different genres. Okay? This is a game of chess which is based on positional and tactical play that are balancing each other. One never works without the other. Okay, so this is not a different kind of chess. When you get those type of improvements, tactics are going to come, and they're going to come good. You just need to understand that tactical play does not work without having the right resources. Okay, I'm not right completely, because sometimes when your opponent blunders, you may have the immediate tactic to exploit it. That's right. But I'm not talking about the situations where he blunders. When he blunders, of course, we can just make a tactic, take the piece, win the game, go home. That's easy. But I'm talking when you're playing a good player who doesn't blunder. This is how you have to play. Bishop to e3, and then we go b5 in this moment. If you're thinking, why not f4? It's queen c5 check that would have worked out, and then knight d3 is pretty powerful. So white played this, b5, and then, actually, white plays rook fd1, a6, bishop d4, knight d3. And after queen c3, there's rook c8. And that looks great. Even if white doubles up the rooks, it's just never going to be the same anymore, because black can play f6, rook d1, queen e6, and thanks to a strong knight and a beautiful rook, black's better. He is going to play prepare a5, play b4. Keep in mind the bishop's hanging, so a5 is b4, and b4 are quite possible in the next moves. It's a great game. Now you can outplay him in any way you want, but most likely what's going to happen is that your opponent's nerves aren't going to hold, and he'll mess it up by playing b3 or something on his own and causing more weaknesses. This is very valuable. That's how you have to think. I really love the idea of planning like this because, again, planning is about evaluating the right circumstances in the position and figuring out which of these 3 stages are you in. Are you in a stage where you need to develop? Are you in a stage where you need to improve your pieces? Or are you in a stage where you can actually think about a specific area where you can think of it, where you can actually pressure or attack on? Find out that and figure out how to get stronger there, whichever of these 3 things you need to do, and simply follow through with that. Let the position do the heavy lifting for you. That's what the plan is all about. And when you do it, you'll be successful. So again, if you are interested, you could take a look at the 67% off middle game mastery course that's being offered by iChess for the next few hours. So check this out on the link below this video. or the link from the chat. And again, if you want me to send you those examples from today, just don't forget to email me at valeri.lilov@gmail.com, or just visit my website on tigerlilov.com. I'm going to talk to you next Saturday at the same time with another topic on strategy, middle game, and openings. We'll see what it is. So have a good night, and I hope you all have a great weekend.